Good afternoon. Welcome to Who's Tom and Dick? With your hosts, Martin Weavers and Patrick Mortimer.
Good afternoon to you, Patrick.
Martin. How are you doing?
Yeah, doing really, really good, thank you.
Good. Glad to hear it.
Well, the gentleman we've got with us today, he's played over 600 Football League games, and he's from Liverpool, and he's played for Doncaster, Colchester, Brentford, Aldershot, and he's even managed Aldershot as well, and Colchester, along with Stevenage, Doncaster and Southend United. So we're pleased this afternoon to have Mr. Steve Wignall in the studio with us.
Yes.
Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
Good afternoon.
First question, are you blue? Are you red?
There's only one team in Liverpool. It's bright red.
There you go. That answered that one straight away.
Right, I'll cross my question out now. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know you had that question.
Yeah. Go on then.
All right. Well, so, Steve, you're 5'11", I read in your stats. That doesn't seem huge, and you played centre-half. But I watched you several times, and you used to get up. But did you ever find it a problem?
No, not really. I mean, if it had been 6'4", I'd probably be a multi-millionaire now. But no, luckily I had a good jump, what's called a sergeant jump, at about 16 inches. And, I spoke to Kevin Beattie about that, because Kevin was only about the same size as me. We played together. Games at Colchester. And it's the timing as well. And I talk to young players these days, and they talk about heading the ball. It's all about footwork and timing. It's not really about the heading the ball, because even if you watch the Premiership, people get up really well and head the ball, but it doesn't go where they want it to, you know. And I started heading the ball with my dad when I was about 8 or 9, softball, not heavy ball, crossing and heading in the goal, etc., etc. And I think that gave me the timing. And that's basically how I survived, if you like, at centre half. I wouldn't say I was totally dominant, but I'd win my first share.
Yeah. Yeah. So take us back to the start then, how it all started, Steve, because obviously, you know, you went for an apprenticeship, I suppose, or?
Yeah, I went for a trial at Liverpool. There was about 400 kids at Melwood Drive, and luckily 8 were picked to come training regularly. I was one of them. Used to go on a Tuesday and a Thursday night. I'd moved over to the Wirral at that time, so I used to have to get a bus, a ferry and a bus.
Wow.
To get there for 6:30. And some nights it was very, very difficult, obviously, with schoolwork as well. I went to a grammar school, actually. I didn't actually play football at grammar school. I played rugby. But luckily the head teacher then was an ex-professional and used to let me off, if you like, to go and train and play for Liverpool every other week. So I was there from 14 to 16. Unluckily enough, I was against Phil Thompson and John Gidman and these sort of players. So I wasn't offered an apprenticeship straight away, but they said to me, if you're going to stay on for another year, because a bloke called Phil Boersma, who used to play then,
I remember him.
He stayed as an amateur for another 2 years. But, you know, for me, I thought, no, I want to play now. So luckily I had a trial at Doncaster, and they gave me 3 months trial as an apprentice as such. And I signed full-time pro at 17. It was Maurice Setters was manager then.
Cool, I remember him. Yeah.
Coventry, Man United, I think it was. Great, like Matt Morris. You know, he believed in young players.
So how far is Doncaster from Liverpool?
It's about 2 hours. About 2 hour drive.
Yeah, I thought it was a fair away.
It was a different world to me. I'd never been to Yorkshire before.
Yeah.
And, even the accent when they used to call me Old Love and now then, and it took me a while because I went into digs and they were strong Yorkshire people. And the accent was quite difficult for me at the time.
They might have thought the same thing about you, Steve, actually.
They did, actually. Yeah, they wondered why I was there, some of them. You know, it's a foreign country in Lancashire, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was in digs for 5 years there.
Yeah.
So luckily, as I say, I started professional a year early at 17. So I played for actually 20 years exactly. I packed in at 37, which isn't bad.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you had 5 years at Doncaster, and did someone come? Well, you obviously came to Colchester next. Did they come calling for you?
Yeah, well, it was strange really because I'd done really well under Morris, and West Ham were watching me a couple. And I actually went to eventually when Stan Anderson came in, I went to Notts Forest on loan for 3 months, and Brian Clough was going to sign me.
But that's another story you got to tell us, isn't it? Meeting him at the station. Yeah,
but that fell away, unfortunately. I was only 21 at the time. Maybe it was too early for me. I mean, I was playing with Viv Anderson and that sort of side. It was a difficult time for me because I I didn't not get on with Stan Anderson, but he came to the club and he brought players with him.
Yeah.
And two of those were sent. One was the right back and one was centre half. So straight away, I was like kicked back a little bit. So I wouldn't say I didn't get on with him, but I tried my best. It just didn't work. And one day he just came in and said, "Oh, coaches have come for you." So I went down to see Bobby Roberts and I snapped their hand off.
Yeah. Well, tell us about that little story about Brian Clough then, just before we carry on, because obviously that's before the Colchester, when you signed for Colchester, wasn't it?
Yeah. Tony Woodcock came on loan to Doncaster.
Yeah.
Cloughy apparently at the time didn't fancy him, didn't think he was going to do it. Well, history proves that he did do it. He came over there and I went the other way eventually. And Terry Curran, who played wide right for us, went on to Sheffield Wednesday after. He was at Forest and he spoke to me and said, "Oh, Brian Clough fancies you. Do you fancy coming over?" So the last game of the season at Doncaster, we were playing Scunthorpe at home and I was on the bench and he threw me on, like we were 1-0 down, I think. He threw me on the last 10 minutes up front and I was playing against Richard Money, who then went on to Liverpool, ironically.
Yeah.
And we went for a couple of balls and I clattered into him a couple of times. Not on the foul, I was quite aggressive. And all of a sudden he turned around and tried to right hook me. So I tried to right hook him back and we were both sent off. So that, in a way, that was fate because we were sent off for fighting, which was stupid, really, I suppose. I mean, my brother was playing in the game. He was only 17. He was making his debut for Doncaster.
Oh, I didn't know you had a brother in the game.
Yeah, he played for Doncaster for a whole season, I think, at 17, 18.
Yeah.
Richard Money had just gone right over the top on him and clattered him. So I was a little bit annoyed about that. So, anyway, I went on. I was a bit of a silly. I was only young, 20, 21. It was a stupid thing to do, but we both got sent off. Hence, next year he took me... Brian Clough took me on loan and I couldn't play in the first 3 games because I'd been sent off. So that set me back. I went to Germany on loan with him, on tour, played in all the games, did really well, enjoyed it. John McGovern was in the team. I've got a photograph of the team, actually. I think 8 of that team played in the European Cup final only 2 years later.
Yeah.
So that I felt at that time that was my big opportunity. I'm not saying I blew it, but obviously he went to sign someone else. I think he signed Larry Lloyd the next season. Ironically from Liverpool.
Yeah.
And
sadly lost him a little while.
Yes, I saw it in the paper. It was really sad. Well, that's another thing. Even at my age, I'm nearly 70 now, with the amount of players that are dying.
Yeah.
And, whether it's anything to do with the wear and tear we've been talking about and brain damage, etc., which is quite high profile in the media at the minute.
Yeah.
I don't know, but it's quite sad to see them because I've played against a lot of them and seen them personally.
I wonder if it'd be more, well, I suppose centre forwards and centre halves, because you get your midfielders and your fullbacks, but centre forwards and centre halves head the ball more, don't they? Certainly
they do. And I think I was talking to Perry Groves about the other day. On a Friday morning, Steve Dowman and I used to stand on the edge of the penalty box, and the youngsters used to smash balls at us from the halfway line, and we used to come and have to head them back to the halfway line again.
Perry said that, and he said your head was, your forehead used to be really swollen. And
well, I looked like him, a monster at times, but it was something we practiced, and it did. Having said that, we were very aggressive, and Steve Dowman and I had a good partnership for some years. I think we had a record clean sheets, something like 9 or 10 or 11 clean sheets at one point in the season.
Oh, right.
So, we were quite formidable with that. And I think the training did help that. But whether it did us any damage, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. Well, I suppose there's no evidence actually at the moment, proven, is there? So you look at the statistics of the players and you see who they are and where they play, and that's why they are trying to work that out. I suppose scientists will come up with something eventually.
Well, if you look at Nobby Stiles, for instance, and I mean, Nobby Stiles was never renowned for heading the ball that much. So it's very, very difficult. My wife and I, because my memory is not great at the minute, we worked out how many times I'd headed the ball. It went into thousands.
Yeah.
And also head injuries, like concussions. You don't have to be knocked out to get a concussion. You just rattle your brain, you can be concussed. But still, and I must have had that a dozen times.
Yeah.
Maybe more, And
then you carried on in the game, I suppose.
Yeah, and going backwards again, sorry, to Stan Anderson, which I didn't get on great with, and Stan didn't have much time for me for some reason, but I had a car crash. Someone ran into the back. I just got a Mini. We just bought a Mini, wife and I was going to pick her up from ICI where she worked in Doncaster, and a huge car just ran into the back of me. I didn't see it coming, just smashed into me. And I went backwards, my seat broke, and I hit the back of my head on the back parcel shelf. Cut it badly, had to go to hospital, etc. And I obviously was concussed because I must have been out for a little while. Well, that was on I think it was a Tuesday. And I went in on the way, had it stitched up, went in Wednesday, he said, train Thursday. And I played on the Saturday rather than he put me in and played me. Whom I say I can't play. I'd play in every game, especially when I wasn't playing regular. Played a local derby of 10,000 people at Rotherham. I cannot remember 1 minute of that game.
Wow.
Right.
So whether that was anything to do with that concussion at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing I'm trying to say is the manager on the physio maybe, you'd be all right. It put a flesh wound. I think those days have gone and it is being controlled better. There's still more to be done, especially with rugby as well.
Yeah.
But that was quite poignant for me. That I to this day can't remember a single. And that was a big, Rotherham and Doncaster was a big derby. 10,000, 12,000 people there at Rotherham.
Yeah.
So that's definitely not a memory.
We did have an opportunity to interview one of the Premiership doctors who's since moved, and we had to send a question list down to him, didn't we?
Yeah.
And one of my questions was to the doctor, does the manager ever or play a player you advise not to play? And he said, that's a question you can't ask me. So...
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the old days was...
But we're going to ask you.
Yeah. The physio had a chat with it. He's okay. Go, on you go. I mean, I can remember playing at Grimsby in the reserves and a bloke called John Quigley, who's the coach then was one of the most difficult opponents to play with. He was only about 5'8", with bandy legs, but he was a really aggressive Scotsman. Yeah. He was a character in itself, and he sometimes had to carry the sponge in reserve games. So it just shows you look at the staff now. Yeah. I did a few years ago, I did a commentary on Colchester, someone, and all these lads come out in black outfits, trainers and all that. I thought, what's that? There was about 8 of their staff. Yeah. When I managed, I had the physio assistant who like Steve Wignall, who was playing as well. And that was it. And yourself, the youth team coach, etc., etc. So times have changed. Anyway, John Quigley was taking the reserves to Grimsby on a Tuesday night, freezing cold, and within 2 minutes, the centre forward, for some reason, decided to elbow me. As I went to head the ball, elbowed me and smashed my nose. I went back and blood everywhere. John comes on this sponge and said, Wiggs, get up, get all right. I sat up, there's blood everywhere, it's on me everywhere. And he got this big sponge and gone straight in my face, wipes my face down. It stunk of liniment. And he said, "You all right?" I went, "I think so." He said, "Up you get," and he trotted it off, and I just carried on. And thinking back, that wouldn't happen now, would it?
No.
I had actually cracked my nose, but I would have carried on anyway. But that was the treatment you got.
Yeah.
Take that.
It's getting more scientific now, isn't it? Because a lot of the players wear heart monitors and things.
Yeah.
They've got all that information, how fast they're running and how much work they've done.
Well, they've got all those little screens in front of them as well. As soon as a goal is scored,
it's a different world.
It is, yeah.
As a player, I mean, we used to have team meetings after defeats or victories, whatever, and sometimes, you'd lay it out there, this blow, and there'd be arguments. There's no arguments now, is there? Because the stats tell. Having said that, you can have the best stats in the world, but it doesn't mean you've affected the game enough.
No.
It doesn't always work like that.
No.
As Perry Groves was saying the other day, it's about heart and it's about wanting to win. Yeah. And you look at Man United the other day in Coventry, they confuse me, Man United. They've got too many players who I think, what word can I use? Maybe I've got to be careful. Don't fancy it sometimes. Then I watched the Liverpool game on the television in the evening, and I've never seen a team work so hard. I know they had a couple of bad results, but the players in there absolutely leaving it all out there,
Yeah.
And unless these days, at any level of football, if you haven't got 11 that are going to do that, you're going to struggle. You are going to struggle. I know that, mate.
So you had 7 years playing at Colchester.
Yeah.
And
I didn't really want to leave, but I asked for a 3-year contract to take me into a testimonial. And they said, no, we'll only give you a 2.
Really? Because they had lots of testimonials at Colchester, didn't
Mickey
they?
Packer.
Mickey Walker.
Steve Foley.
Yeah.
Deservedly so, because that shows it was a nice little club because people wanted to stay there.
I'm really surprised that they wouldn't do that.
I was quite happy to stay, but no, whatever. And anyway, my contract was up and Brentford came in. Frank McClintock phoned me up and I went to see them and I went there.
Oh, one of my all-time heroes, Frank McClintock.
Great, Frank. I mean, you wouldn't mind me saying he wasn't a great successful manager, but he was a great player and a nice man. Yeah. Probably too nice at times. But we had a good team at Brentford. I mean, Chris Kamara.
Right.
people like that. Terry Hairlock.
Yeah.
Went on to play for Rangers.
Yeah.
Andy Sinton.
God.
You know, we had some really good players. It's one of those teams where you got all the good players.
I like hearing about all these old players.
But they didn't really get the team to perform. We got the Autumn Windscreens final. We did really well. We beat Newport at home 6-0 or something, I think it was. And we were playing Wigan in the final, and we didn't turn up. The mistake they made, I think, they took us away on a holiday for a break for 5 or 6 days. We still trained.
This is Colchester.
Yeah, no, at Brentford. Sorry.
Brentford, sorry.
Yeah, they took us away for 5 days and then came back and then played the final. But, I'm not saying that the players drank too much or anything like that. Or I didn't think that was the greatest preparation. And we lost 3-1 in the end.
Where were those finals played at Wembley then?
At Wembley, yeah.
Yeah.
There was about 50,000 there, 45, 50,000 there on the day.
Yeah.
And I played with young Keith Millen, played alongside, he was only 18. And bless him. He made a mistake for the first goal. I felt for him, but that happens in those big games.
Yeah.
But he went on to play for Brentford and get promoted with them. Became a manager of Bristol City, I think.
Okay, yeah.
And had a decent career. But that's a great
Brentford,
squad.
isn't that the ground that's got a pub in every corner?
Did.
Did you try them?
Funny you should say that, because it was a different world then. Terry Hairlock had friends around there. That bloke who used to play the barman in Fools of Horses.
Ken someone.
Yeah, he died early, didn't he? He was
Yeah.
only 40 odd. He used to play cards around then. Terry used to go there as well, you know, and it was one of those type of clubs. But no, there isn't there now, because they built the new ground, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But I always felt Brentford were quite a big club at that level.
Right.
You know, even when we were in the first division then, they're still getting 8, 9, 10,000 people, which wasn't bad.
Yeah, they have a sort of hit and miss season at the moment, don't they? You know,
I think the manager's done a marvellous job.
Yeah, he has.
And the hiccup he's had with injuries and Tony, all this sort of trouble.
Yeah.
They've done absolutely fantastic. And it showed the other day. I think they beat someone 5-1, didn't they? Was it West Ham? Was it?
Yeah, what was West Ham?
West Ham, I think it was.
Yeah.
Kenneth MacDonald. That was it. Ken
That's
MacDonald.
it, yeah.
Ken MacDonald, that was his name.
I think he had a heart attack on holiday or something like that with his family, didn't he? Which was tragic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Stan Bowles used to be there as well. Stan Bowles was a big mate.
Yeah.
He used to come to all the games, Stan,
Yeah.
and watch our games. He was
Fantastic
great.
player.
Oh, unbelievable.
Yeah.
But, he's another one that, you know, we've lost to whatever.
Yeah, too early.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you remember when you turned professional what your first wage was?
Yes, £25 a week.
And what was the average?
No, sorry.
The average wages?
£18 a week.
£18 a week.
But if I play in the first team, I got another £25 on top.
Right.
So that was more than my wages.
Yeah.
Luckily enough, I got in the first team at 18.
Right.
So I was earning £50, £60 a week. That's in 1974.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which wasn't bad.
And what was the average wage of,
That's a good
factory
question.
worker?
Well, my wife she was a lab technician, worked for ICI, and she started on £12 a week she started.
Wow.
So that's £48 a month, is it?
Yeah.
It's a different world.
One of your former teammates, Dennis Longhorn, he came down.
Dennis, yeah, he lives in the same village.
Yeah, I was surprised he wasn't at the club the other day, but because he normally comes down when the ex-coach
Dennis is a
players
good
are
character, nice
talking.
character. He was Dennis is is a great player, and he's very quiet. And you'd be playing the game would going on. He's obviously have a bit of a to-do with someone, and all of a sudden he would just launch for no reason. And he's the mildest bloke you could meet. But when his head went a little bit, it was so funny. But he's a good player. He was a fantastic player, Dennis.
Yeah, but he was saying about the wage and the bonuses and, you know, when he went to Sunderland, wasn't it? Because he went there just after they won the FA Cup.
Yes.
And he was saying about the bigger bonuses for going there, and as opposed to some other team, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I remember him saying.
Yeah.
So,
well, funny enough, before that, the week before the Sunderland final, 3 of those players, I can't remember the name, I think the centre half with the fuzzy hair, Richie. I can't remember his name now. Anyway, another 2 players, they played in the reserve game because they needed to see if they were fit.
Right.
At Bellevue that night, and that was interesting. Within another 4 or 5, they were playing in that cup final. Richie Pitt, that's it. And there's another couple of midfield players or whatever playing, and I remember that to the day. You know, and they went on and did fantastic, didn't they?
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Never forget Bob Stokoe.
Oh, fantastic!
Coat.
Yeah.
So it sounds as if you met your wife fairly early on in your career. What was it like having to move up sticks and keep moving around?
Well, saying I met my wife early, she was 14 when I first met her.
Was it right? Okay.
Yeah,
Blimey.
A bit early for marriage.
School. Yeah, that's cool. A bit early for marriage. Yeah, that's why I tell people I got married at 12. That's why. So yeah, I moved away for 5 years actually. We had kind of separate lives really because I was in digs and she was working. She was at school, and then she was working. It just went on for it was difficult, and we've moved. I've lost count how many times we moved. The problem I had really, and I think it was a mistake, but in the same time, it isn't a mistake. Whenever I went to another club, it was too far to travel. I wanted to take my family with me.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to do that traveling. A lot of players just go travel, stay up 3-4 days a week and go. I didn't really want that. So we shifted the kids around so much, which it didn't harm them because they all did very, very well. You know, I mean, like one of the boys was deputy head boy, the daughter was head girl. So all the education they had was okay, but we did, moved probably too much. And my mother, when I was living in Ruislip, that's the longest I've lived in West London, about 6 years, because I actually did travel to Aldershot from Brentford. My mother-in-law was down. And
wow, that's a fair older.
It used to be 10 hours and 45 minutes every day back. And, that's when the last time the kids were really entrenched in school, and we didn't think it was worth moving to Aldershot. I did eventually because I got the coach's job there. Yeah, and then
because did they go out of business when you was there?
I was
reformed a new team.
Brian Talbot was and I was coach with him.
Yeah,
made me coach, and that was about 93, I think, when he left, and then Ian MacDonald and myself took over. Yeah, just finished the season off, and no one was paid for months and months and months. No, how we survived, heavens knows, So then it went out of business, and I was offered the job as manager in 92 when they went into the Deodora Division 3.
God blimey.
I've never played non-league. I didn't have a clue what was going on. So I organised all that. And to be fair, we did pretty well. First year, we won the division by 18 points.
I saw you won,
Second division, the second time we got promoted. So
and that was as a new team, wasn't it? Aldershot Town.
It's Aldershot Town, yeah. We were still we had a local derby against Farnborough in the Hampshire Cup, I think it was. 6,000 turned up for it.
Wow.
Yeah. And these are lads that are working and on 20 quid a week. So I had to try and turn these lads into mentally thinking they're professionals. Yeah. Because going out in front of 1,500, 2,000 people every week, whereas we were going to some places and there'd be, they'd have 50 people and we'd take 800. Yeah. So these players had to step up and they did absolutely fantastic.
Were they semi-professional and got a little bit in there?
Well, most of them had full-time jobs and they would literally, I think the average wage I was paying is 20 quid, 20, 30 quid, maybe £10 for a win or something like that. Right. Because we only had a small budget. And just recently I noticed they've just missed out on the playoffs, haven't they?
Oh, I didn't see what they've done.
Just missed out by 2 points, I think. Aldershot. It's not the conference now, it's National League. So if they'd have got to the playoffs, I was going to perhaps phone them up and ask them if I could come go and watch. It'd be nostalgic for me. Because I played in the 80s team that got promoted. We beat Wolves in the playoffs and got into the first division.
Well, yeah.
The old second division.
There's a young lad from Sudbury associated with Aldershot. He was in the academy. Well, first of all, he got rejected by Ipswich. And then he got taken on by Sudbury in their academy, which is really good.
It's good. I've seen it. It's excellent.
And he went on to Aldershot. And he's now been transferred to Bristol City.
Oh, that's what I saw that. I can't remember his name.
Joe someone, I think. I can't remember what his name is. But we mentioned him on one of our previous, because we say, never give up. He could have quite easily given up and gone out of the game.
Well, I think that happens with the majority of players, doesn't it? I can remember playing with players who were better player than me, and then we'd be chatting and they'd say, I didn't do this, didn't I? I said, yeah, but if you really wanted it enough, you would have tried again. Yeah. And they said, I couldn't be bothered, I'll get to work. And you meet them in the pub and they've got their own lives. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, because the percentage of people who become professional footballers is minute. I think Perry mentioned this.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
I think it used to be a 1 in 1,000, something like that. It's probably more now. It doesn't mean you have to be a top Premiership player. Just to be a full-time professional, it takes some doing. And to stick with it, either luck with injuries, form, change of manager, all those things affect you directly. And that suits a lot of people. I could understand that. Because when I signed professional, I thought if I do a year or two, I'll be well happy here. Really happy. But it ended up being 20. And I think a lot of people have said that in any jobs, haven't they? And I was lucky in some ways, but I looked after myself. If you look after yourself and you have a little bit of luck, there's a way. I spoke to John Walker a long time when I was doing a book signing, and that's some of the sort of player long term. And I've noticed a lot of Virgos, Peter Shilton, people like that, seem to have lasted. I don't know if that's anything to do with that, but they kind of stick with things longer than other people. I just stuck with it as long as, in fact, if I hadn't hurt my hip, or it's actually symphysis pubis, I hadn't damaged that, I'd have played to probably 38. 39 maybe, but I'd done enough then, and I'm
talking of book signings. You have got a book out, haven't you? Or you've got
years ago, it's well.
I should have bought one along. I could have had a read.
I never thought. About 11, 12 years ago now, I think. You Can Have Chips. Should I tell you why it's called You Can Have Chips? Very good. I don't want to spoil it, but very good. Once again, go back to Doncaster. I didn't really get on great with the manager, but we were all sat around a huge table, pre-match meal, away somewhere. And no one knew what the team was. And there was 15, 16 of us. And all of a sudden, 2 waiters came with 2 big plates full of chips.
Right.
And Stan stood up and went ballistic. It's a pre-match, not having that, having eggs and whatever it was. And then they went to turn around and he went, oh, wait a minute. Hang on. And he went round and he went, you can have chips. You can have chips. And yet, 3 of us. So that means we weren't playing. I tell you what, the place went silent. All the players went, because it's the most humiliating put down I've ever seen. I've ever experienced. I felt like an inch tall.
Yeah.
And that for me finished me with him, and I was gone after that. But what a way of doing that. So they piled the chips on. Going up there, you can have them, don't worry about it.
Well, you was always surely the first name on the culture team sheet, because I remember the period of watching you.
As Woy Hodgson, sorry, I got it all wrong. As Woy has just retired, I mean, you're a mere spring chicken, don't you? Fancy getting back into management?
Well, funny you should say that.
I looked up your age for that question. So
I'm 70 in September. No, I think I made a few mistakes. I think the biggest mistake was leaving Colchester. I'd got burnout. I think I'd done 3 solid years at Aldershot, and then did another 5 years there, 4.5, 5 years there. And that's only 7, 8 years, I know, and I was reasonably young, but I'd been at it, which you have to be successful. You can't get on Tuesday night and think, I don't fancy going to that game tonight. No, you get yourself out hundreds and hundreds of miles. I think I got to the point, and also we just got promoted, and I couldn't see how we were going to, so it's going to be absolutely, worse than getting promotion, more difficult than just stay in that division than getting promotion out of the second division. So I spoke to a few people and wanted to do this, and it couldn't be done really. So that's how it went.
I was shocked.
There was no nastiness, and they didn't sack me or anything like that. I spoke to Mr. Hurd.
It says you resigned, but I think you sort of left by mutual consent.
Yes, it was really. It was, yeah. That's how it was, because that's how I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
And I think I probably had regrets within about 6 months.
So, Steve, we mentioned a little bit about, only touched briefly on Brian Clough. I'd like to know more about Brian Clough. I know I keep coming back to it, but I'd like to know more.
Well, wouldn't everyone? When I went there...
I just want to do an impression. That's it. Young man.
You're a clown. He's a clown. No, he was he wasn't a coach. He didn't come out and coach. And Peter Taylor, what's Peter Taylor, was it?
Peter Taylor was his sidekick, yeah.
They never came and coached. But we're doing the session into 8v8, or passing, keeping it, all this. He was very much into that. And Brian Clough and Taylor came out onto the training pitch, and we were all playing around. Then all of a sudden they walked into the middle and they sat down on the floor and we're playing around them, and no one said a word. They just literally sat down. So we just continued, and they were watching, obviously.
Yeah.
And they'd been 5-10 minutes, we're playing around, they keep ball and all this, and all of a sudden they got up and then just walked off. And I thought, that was really odd, but he did it for a reason. Definitely, certainly got our attention. And I can tell you that, and the training session was ramped up in front of them, obviously. And he also picked people out. John Robertson, the winger.
Yeah.
When he got his about stone overweight, they hammered him. He was late for training. They'd hammer him in front of the other players. But then he ends up helping win the.
Oh yeah, he got the winner, didn't he?
Doesn't he? And that was his. He was getting to your head.
Yeah.
And his team talk to me before I went out was, all right, always have the number 9 in front of you, put him on his backside when you can, and attack the ball.
Yeah.
And that's it.
What did you enjoy most? Did you enjoy playing or managing?
Playing, I think.
Yeah.
I never intended to be a manager. That wasn't on my remit, really. I did these PFA courses. I did a leisure course, which Mickey Packer did, and he went on to get a job in that. I did a sports therapy course for 2 years and passed that. And I was thinking of going to maybe physiotherapy. I was offered a job at Leicester, but then I fell into the job at Aldershot.
Yeah.
And it went from there, really. Fortunately, it worked for me in most clubs.
I think fans think that's a natural progression from football to management, but obviously Wayne Rooney has proved that wrong.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of top players have tried it, and it just hasn't suited them.
No.
You know, and it's for whatever reason, you've got to be looking. And if you've got a big name, they're expecting miracles from you straight away, and that doesn't work.
I was at one of these games, and I think I might have been at 2, but I certainly wasn't at the Villa away game. But you played some big games at Colchester, didn't you? You know, in the League Cup.
Yes, we beat them 2-0, I think.
You did, yeah, but lost on penalties, didn't you?
And Mickey Walker smashed it over the bar.
I know,
I think
a goalkeeper.
10-9 on penalties, something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
What a night that was. And they were one of the top teams then.
I think I was at the Layer Road game for that. But the other big game was, I didn't go to the Man United game when Jimmy Greenough scored.
Oh, don't tell me about it. I was marking him.
Was you? Oh, no.
It's always haunted me. Yeah, it's haunted me. We played, it was like 4 inches of snow. And actually, 2 days before that, I twisted my ankle in training. So I thought, I'm going to miss. So I strapped it up. It was black and blue. I strapped it up. I played in the game.
Yeah.
And we did quite well. In fact, their keeper had more saves to make than us.
Yeah, that's
Do you know
right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it was the 88th minute or something. And Gordon McQueen was coming up late, and Trevor Lee was supposed to be with him. I think Trevor was a little bit behind him, and I was marking Greenough at the far post. Not making an excuse, just how it happened. And I saw the ball, and I thought, I've got to attack the ball. Attack the ball. Me and him both missed it. And Greenough just stood far post, knocked it down and knocked it in the net.
Yeah.
Minute.
But that Villa one, going back to that one, that was even better, I think, because most of the team in the Villa side, I noticed, they went on to win the European Cup.
Yep. Amazing.
And, I had Rimmer and Gidman, Swain, Evans, McNaught, Gibson, Cowans, Mortimer, Morley, Dean and Shaw.
Yeah, well, Gidman was at Liverpool. As a kid, when I was there, John Gidman, he was big mates with Phil Thompson.
Yeah.
So, what an achievement that was. But then we didn't really get the publicity, did we?
No. I mean, you actually went there and that Villa game, you went there and beat them 2-0.
And also later on, when I was managing, we went to Coventry and won 2-0.
Oh, right.
And Steve Wignall played half the game in goal.
Oh, right.
And we still beat them. You know, so those days, you just got it in a little bit in the paper. Now it's a big deal, which is, I mean, the Coventry game just recently was.
Well, obviously, the Leeds game got lots of publicity, didn't it? But, you know,
you've got to win it, though. You've got to win that game, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, you did the Villa one, but as I say, it was unlucky. Poor old Mickey Walker.
Oh,
so most of the players tell us that he was Mr., spick and span. All his kit was laid out right. Is that?
Yeah, I roomed with him quite a bit, especially when we went abroad, and he was very much just a bit of an enigma. Yeah, but he did a good job when he went into management, which I was I'm not surprised about. But he didn't really.
He lived in my village.
In
Bures.
Yeah, well, that was his nickname, Bures.
Oh, was it?
Because when I in the 70s, you didn't live far from the ground. People didn't travel.
No,
he was at like the 10 miles out.
9 miles to Bures.
We thought it was the end of the world, and then I lived at Hawksley, and that was the end of the world.
Yeah,
coming from Hawksley. But now that's nothing, is it?
No.
You know how times have changed.
No.
With transport and everything.
But all you players, when you turned up at the ground, you all sort of mixed in with the fans and you saw them and, you signed autographs. And nowadays I see these Premiership players and they turn up, they've all got their Walkmans on.
That's good.
Sorry, the fans.
They're in the zone.
They're in the zone.
Yeah, right. I've seen that zone.
I wish I had a chance to get in the zone. For heaven's sake. I mean, I'm not going to criticise them, but that's the way I think that life's gone like that, hasn't it? It's not just footballers. I think the way it is, I am a bit of a dinosaur from the management situation, like you're saying about getting back into management. Not really thought about it because I came out for my own reasons.
Yeah.
I went to Southend and that finished me off really because the place was it was a disaster.
But you did some non-league, didn't you?
Yeah, I helped
Wivenhoe.
Wivenhoe, I wasn't the manager, just the coach. Helped out. We got in the playoffs and we lost out on that and did a few bits and pieces. But I used to enjoy doing it.
Yeah.
I think you've got to have a really good black book to be a manager these days. Lots of names and contacts, haven't you?
Well, I had one, and
Yeah.
the amount of people you get to know and speak to is phenomenal, really.
Yeah.
And I think the interesting point, when you meet people, it's a leveler. You meet people who've played at the very, very top level.
Yeah.
And you haven't played the top level, but you've still been professional. And then when you get into that manager, you're on the same. I mean, Kevin Ratcliffe, I got very friendly with him. He was manager of Chester when I went up there, and he actually said that when we got Shrewsbury job, he was going to give me the assistant's job if his friend, can't remember his name now, was at Oxford, didn't go. And we got to. I mean, look at Kevin Ratcliffe's one.
Yeah.
In his career, but then he struggled at Shrewsbury and he hasn't managed since. I think he does radio work on Radio Merseyside. And he's an Evertonian. He's an Everton player. But he was great, and he was one of these. I think the higher you go, the less big time Charlie they were.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been on the side in non-league games when they've said things and thinking, sorry? I mean, you wouldn't say that to anybody.
No.
You go to Man City or you go to Liverpool, their staff wouldn't say those things to you. No. So there's a bit more respect. I don't know what it's like now because I'm not in the game, but I thought there's more respect to a certain degree. A lot of managers have got all this running about, and I didn't do all that. It was just me.
Yeah.
I don't blame them. I think that's their outlet, isn't it?
VAR. What's your thoughts on VAR, especially after the Coventry Man United game? Did you see the result of that?
Yeah, I wouldn't.
This is where I tell you, I was actually a semi-professional referee. So
yes, I've got to be careful what I say. I always got, believe it or not, I hardly ever got. I don't think I got booked for dissent in my whole career. I got booked for kicking someone or being a bit rough or whatever. I don't see the point of it. But the VAR, I'm very confused. I watched the game the other night, and there was three things that were penalties. I think one of them was definite penalty. When there was the fullback.
They said the third one was more
when he caught the lad from behind. He's in front of him. Why would he fall over? He's only 12 yards out.
Yeah.
I think that was a definite penalty, but I don't really. The Liverpool thing was a debacle, wasn't it?
I think they said that the guy who's operating the VAR was a Luton fan or something.
Well, that's what they're trying to say. But why have they not got ex-professional players doing all of it?
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And those referees are probably better in some ways because they're watching it all the time.
Well, just to finish up with, Steve, we touched briefly on it, and you mentioned about heading the ball, and you went to see your doctor, and about I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah, possibly CTE or some sort of damage because my memory, short memory, has been awful over the last 2 or 3 years. So we went to see some people about it, and they said it could be linked to a bit of depression, or it could be this or that, change of lifestyle. Because coming out of football, it's a bit like coming out of the army or the Navy. It's like you go into just a completely different world.
Yeah.
Even at that level.
Yeah.
So that maybe affected me a little bit. But going back, the amount of concussions I've had, head collisions, phenomenal. And we totted them all up, and I wrote them down. And even the lady I went to see was quite shocked.
Yeah.
How many collisions I've had. So I'd had an X-ray, and they said no, they can't. But they can't see CTE.
Yeah.
Which is chronic trauma encephalopathy, is it? I think that's the last word. Yeah, I think that's
right.
Excuse me for my ignorance.
Yeah, no.
But they can't tell that until they actually take the brain and they examine it.
Oh.
And that's why I think Jeff Astel's daughter, is it? They gave his brain. I think they gave his brain to science.
That's
right. And a couple of other people may have done. So looking forward, I can see myself perhaps getting a little bit worse. Whether it's that or not, I don't know. But it's something that we're thinking about.
You said you were on statins, didn't you?
Yes.
How long have you been on statins?
About 2 years now.
So you said about 3 years. Statins do have an effect, making your mind a bit woolly.
Well, in that case,
I've found that.
Martin's
found that.
That might be a good thing in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Because maybe it's not CTE.
Yeah.
I've seen some documentaries. I saw the rugby player
Yeah.
Steve.
Sometimes it's best not to watch them.
Well, yeah, maybe. But I also saw the film Concussion, the American football one. That's and they've compensated a lot of players now, haven't they?
Yeah.
Which I don't think that's what. Why should it be compensated? I decided to do what I did.
Yeah.
But if the information was there earlier than they thought, and they haven't told people, I think then
that's a different story. Yeah,
you get a different story.
Yeah.
But no, I think what they're doing now, kids can play without head and ball.
Yeah.
But you got to it's heading the ball's a skill, direct in the correct manner. And I think if you cut it out completely, they're only starting at 15, 16 to head the ball. So
But you certainly had that skill, I can tell you, Steve, because as I say, I watched you many a time. So
I could have had the ball okay.
Yeah. Just couldn't kick it. No, you was all
had my
right.
legs tied together. But
You was all right.
Yeah, they called me a so-called football.
Well, you must have won the Player of the Year a few years at Colchester.
Yeah, I did a couple. Yeah.
Yes,
and I got the Manager of the Year a couple of times as well, which was very pleasing because that's for everyone to win it because you need it.
And what about Hall of Fame? You're in the Hall of Fame, aren't you?
Oh, am I? I don't know.
Yeah, Patrick said you were. I was going to ask you.
Am I in the Hall of Fame? Oh,
Pat?
Yeah, I thought you were in the Hall of Fame somewhere.
Well, I've been back to the ground. I haven't seen any photographs of myself.
Perhaps it's not the Colchester United one then.
Perhaps we should start a petition then.
So, let's start a petition up today to get Steve Wignall. Well, Steve, thanks very much for coming in. It's been fantastic, and you've been very open, answering all our questions, and hope you've enjoyed it.
I have enjoyed it. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes, thanks, Steve. I've been sat here just listening. That's been amazing. But
I told you I had a few questions for him. So
thanks very much, Steve, for coming in, and we really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Take care.
And we'll see you all next week.